wow, this is eye-opening for me, because I had been carrying these beliefs for so long and I just needed to unpack them. I said to ChatGPT all of my limiting beliefs, and they're not ones that sometimes you want to say out loud because they're embarrassing. So this is where we talk about maybe it's easier over a therapist, because to tell a human some of these things that I had revealed that I believed about myself out loud was difficult. But when I unpacked them all, I said, I'm going to give you all of my limiting beliefs, and then you're going to tell me what my new beliefs are based on everything that you know about me and the growth and the progress that I want to make. And I'll tell you, being able to see that reframe of the things that you have all associated, guilt, shame, all of these very low frequency emotion, and to have it reframe back to you as something that like makes sense is so powerful.
Mike's got the hat, the AI kind. Unlocking power in business you'll find. Cut through the hype, explore the tech. Every week, new ideas to check. All 10 leads us on a digital quest. AI secrets he'll always invest. Tune in tight, don't miss a beat. Knowledge groove, keep you on your feet. Listen up to the AI flow. Business growth, here we go. Cutting edge insights, that's the plan. With the AI hat, you'll understand.
Greetings, program. Welcome back to the AI Hat Podcast, the resource for established solopreneurs who are ready to stop being the bottleneck in their own business. Each week, we architect the simple AI operational systems that eliminate admin drag and reclaim your time, freeing you to focus on the high-value work that truly scales your revenue. I'm your host, Mike Galton. Subscribe and let's build your empire together. Now listen, are you exhausted from doing the same mindset work over and over again, only to find yourself making the exact same mistakes that sabotage your business growth? You know the drill. You journal, you meditate, you do the affirmations, but somehow you keep hitting the same walls, making the same poor decisions, and staying stuck in the same patterns that prevent you from scaling. It's the hero complex, whispering in your ear that you just need to try harder, be more disciplined, or find the right motivation. But what if the problem isn't your effort? What if your conscious mind is actually the enemy, hiding the real emotional patterns that are killing your business before you even realize they exist? Well, that's why today I am thrilled to welcome Heather Morgan, a growth mindset mentor who spent over a decade climbing the corporate leadership ladder in FinTech before discovering something revolutionary about how our brains actually work. Heather isn't just another mindset coach. She's the creator of Breaking the Loop, an AI-powered system that does what traditional self-reflection simply can't. It identifies the emotional patterns your conscious mind refuses to see. While most entrepreneurs are stuck doing surface-level mindset work that feels good but changes nothing, Heather's figured out how to use artificial intelligence as an emotional mirror to expose the hidden loops that keep solopreneurs small, stuck, and spinning their wheels. Hey, Heather, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Mike. So happy to be here.
Yeah, my pleasure. I wonder if you could just start by talking about that time you spent in corporate leadership before becoming what you're calling is a mindset mentor. What made you kind of realize that that traditional self-reflection wasn't actually working for most people?
That's a great question, Mike. So as you explained, I've been in corporate for, a number of Fortune 500 companies and just enjoying that space. But there was more to my life that I really needed to discover. And when I left my previous life, meaning a lot of people can relate to getting divorced or any kind of significant life change, it's a point in time where you do a lot of self-reflection and like reevaluate everything that you've done in your life. Is this for me? Right. And I think anyone that's became an entrepreneur, that was a point in time, right? That they go, is this job that I'm in, is this life that I have the one for me, or do I want to follow a passion? And I found myself at that crossroad where I was like, what am I doing? This is my chance to start over. But I realized in unpacking my own identity and growing into a new one, right? No longer being a wife, no longer this, that maybe I should exit corporate and really find what I wanted to do. And during that journey, I had always been pretty self-reflective, but I think, and what I learned actually, is that we self-reflect, but our conscious mind, to your earlier statement, like it likes to keep us safe. It's not necessarily there for growth. And so until we really start unpacking our subconscious minds and those limiting beliefs that are blocking us from the things that we want from life, I think every entrepreneur comes into this and it will be part of their journey, is that you can't outwork, no matter how hard you try, the things that will come up and sabotage you for the growth in your business or your life that you want if you don't remove those limiting beliefs and subconscious blockers. So that's where I got excited and started to go down this path.
I'm so glad you mentioned limiting beliefs. As a NLP practitioner, I know all about how we frame and we distort and we make all these changes. And it's so hard to identify ourselves. Typically, we employ a coach, right, to help us identify that stuff. But you've talked about how AI has become your emotional mirror. Can you kind of walk us through that discovery? What were the patterns maybe that you were seeing in your conscious mind that were being maybe hidden from you?
Yeah. So I started using, probably like a lot of people, Chat GPT for the normal things, but as always having a curious mind, I started asking really more intuitive questions to understand myself. So kind of as if I'm interviewing myself outside myself and really trying to understand, like, why are these behaviors that I say, and we all know this, we say, I don't want to do this, I want to change these things, but we don't. And the reason we don't is what you find when you self-reflect using AI. So when you talk to it long enough and it starts obviously learning you, just like any other machine learning. And the great thing about it is that it's not really like a human bias. It doesn't have that emotional charge, right? So it's just being very observant and factual in its reflection. And it started telling me the things and to the limiting beliefs that I wasn't open to acknowledging, that I probably didn't want to look at. So one example of how I used it for limiting beliefs per se is that I said to ChatGPT all of my limiting beliefs. And they're not ones that sometimes you want to say out loud because they are embarrassing. So this is where we talk about maybe it's easier over a therapist, because to tell a human some of these things that I had revealed that I believed about myself out loud was difficult. But when I unpacked them all, I said, I'm going to give you all of my limiting beliefs. And then you're going to tell me what my new beliefs are based on everything that you know about me and the growth and the progress that I want to make. And I'll tell you, being able to see that reframe of the things that you have all associated guilt, shame, all of these very low frequency emotions, and to have it reframed back to you as something that like makes sense is so powerful. And I wish more people spent the time to do that. That's why I kind of, once I saw that, I was like, wow, this is eye-opening for me, because I had been carrying these beliefs for so long and I just needed to unpack them, release them, and start programming my mind and my subconscious with these new beliefs that, that are also true. I think sometimes we keep beliefs as truth just because they've always been there, but we can change what's true all the time. But we have to be able to first see, what do we believe? And then second question, is that even true? And then thirdly, say, well, what do I want to be true? What is also true? And how do I integrate that into my subconscious mind and move through my life with those new beliefs?
Oh my gosh, yes, that is so true. I'm actually reminded of a conversation that I had with Gemini. I happen to use Google Gemini most of the time. This was probably 6 months ago, and somebody had shared a prompt on LinkedIn. I think it was one of the guys from HubSpot, and it was specifically from marketers and business owners. It was something, the idea of, based on all of our past history, how would you describe my marketing efforts, my business style, that sort of thing. And there was a lot of other nuance into the prompt, but basically what it was asking the AI to do was hold up a mirror and say, what am I not realizing about myself?
Mhm.
Not necessarily in a just a positive complimentary way. We want to know constructive, right? The truths. And it talked about how I was a little too obsessed with being quote unquote productive and being busy and not taking the time to think strategically about the things that I was doing, the business I was growing, and that sort of thing. And it was hauntingly spot on about how close it was to reality. And it really, truly made me stop cold and think about how I was doing things. But now, in that instance, it was based on being able to analyze months and months and months of chat history. When you were having this initial conversation with ChatGPT, did any of that come into it? Or was basically just, here's all my limiting beliefs. What do you think?
So I had been speaking to ChatGPT for quite some time, just about, and I was definitely using differently. I'm so curious that I would even be like, is this what normal people are asking? Like, because I feel like I'm going another level, and they're like, no, actually, it was even giving me, there's only this many portion of people that are actually asking, not exact numbers, but just in general. Like most people are like, hey, help me write and get a free credit for hotels.com or something, like weird kinds of, not weird, but just more practical uses. But
Yeah.
I think this one, when I'm telling it, it's learning me by the questions I ask. So when you start using it for just like the day to day, I would even stop and be like, why am I overthinking this decision? Why am I making this a bigger deal than it needs to be? Why am I not just moving? What is freezing me from acting? And then you unlock, and this happens a lot with entrepreneurs, right? There's this like perfectionism, and we use that as an excuse. It ends up being a limiting belief. It's like, whatever I do has to be perfect. No, it just has to be out there.
Mm.
Like, and having years of experience also in corporate with like product, like throw the MVP out there. If the next guy sells it before us, we're not going to win the market, right? Like, get it out there. We already have the great idea. You already run with it. And this reminded you of that too, that perfectionism. You're not trying to make it perfect. You're afraid that it's not going to be perfect, and then you're going to be shamed or failure or all of those. It's all your beliefs about yourself and having the fear that you're not going to be enough, that people won't want your product, that says something about your worth. And that's why like personal growth and entrepreneurship, there's so much synergy there, because if you don't have enough, and I'm learning this on my own journey, right? Like if you don't have enough self-love, self-leadership, trust in yourself, then you can try to outwork it, but you will always be running, because the moment you stop, your body will tell you, you have to keep going or you'll fail. And that's your whole identity is wrapped in your ability to distribute products or to, you can't pause.
Yep.
And when you can, like, I don't have to run to be productive. Not only can you just get better ideas. You're not in a scarcity mindset. And that's another thing, right? I learned a lot about scarcity and lack. We're in this idea that like, oh, we have to hurry up and go, and there's room in this for everybody. There's niches, there's billions of people in this world. There's always going to be an opportunity, but you just have to move on it. You have to put yourself out there, and you have to not think that there's not an infinite amount of possibilities for you. You know what I mean? Because that's what I learned through talking to AI. Like everything is possible. And every time I get on a plane, Mike, I literally think this, like somebody had this idea that we were going to be flying in an airplane one day. And I'm sure a lot of people were like, what? And now it's just like a daily thing. And when you really think about your mind like that, it only takes everything. It begins in the mind, right? Everything was once a thought, but then we want to overthink our way out of just acting and creating. And I think that is the biggest holdup in like entrepreneurs growing their businesses. They want it to be perfect. And I would just like to challenge people that they're enough. If they have the idea, they can make it happen. It's just moving those blockers out of the way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. In fact, it's why I actually weave a lot of NLP into my teaching, because I want people's minds to be expanded and to think more positively. And just for those of you listening, if you've never heard the phrase limiting beliefs before, it's basically this idea that you are teaching yourself to believe a certain thing about yourself, regardless of whether or not it's true. You've just made the decision. But because you made that decision mentally, your brain can't really distinguish between the fact that it's an opinion versus a fact. Like a few years ago, I might have said, I probably did say, in fact, I'm not a podcaster. I can't be a podcaster. I'm not good at podcasting. And yet here I am. I've published over 100 episodes of this podcast and 6 other podcasts with Agorapulse. I am a podcaster, whether I like it or not. I am a podcaster, and I think it's going great. I get compliments on it and that sort of thing. So it truly was a limiting belief back in the day for me. And we all have these things, they come up, but it's important to recognize consciously that they're there. So let's talk about breaking the loop, because I want to know how you used AI, how it's helping you to identify the emotional patterns and the beliefs that our conscious minds miss.
So yes. So, and one of them really, now that it kind of sparked what you were saying, like the identity claiming, to your point, we say we have to actually do something before we are that. And I learned in this whole breaking the loop, sometimes when I'm asking it the questions, and I have a lot of like prompts, right, that are used to kind of understand and unpack and reflect back to you why you're staying in the places you are. And I think limiting beliefs is kind of really the basis of why most of the things, that's experiences and limiting beliefs. Experiences are usually what creates those limiting beliefs, right? Like someone told you, you can't run, you're not even a runner. So then you never even try to run a race because someone has convinced you of that. And if you don't have enough self-leadership and confidence in yourself, which is why most of these limiting beliefs are programmed in our younger years, more foundational, when we don't have a true sense of self, then we carry those with us. And then they are like sneaky in the background of the reasons why we're not growing, right? Because we don't realize that even something like, I'm not a runner, then you start running a business and you're like, well, to your point, like, I'm not a multi-million dollar. How could I ever be that? Because I never saw that in my life. My family never had that kind of money. So you start like deciding that everything that could be true about you is only the things that you know. But as soon as you get to a place where you understand why you even thought those things not possible for you, then you can start going, but if I think it could be now, then it can be. I just have to replace it with a new belief, right? Because most of the time what I've realized is that, and I truly believe this, even in just a lot of the work that I've done and reading on neuroscience, like if you have the thought, we all have different thoughts. If that thought was presented to you as an idea or something about your identity that you want to pursue, it was there for a reason and you're capable of that thing, or it wouldn't even have came to your mind. And the only thing that's in between you reaching that is the limiting beliefs that are trying to keep you where you've always been. And the crazy thing is in breaking the loop, it really kind of talks about nervous system regulation is another. I know it's kind of a buzzword, but it's all together, because a lot of the time your nervous system, so your subconscious mind tries to keep you safe because it's running the whole show. And your nervous system just doesn't feel safe in things it's unfamiliar with. So until you can get to a place to show it that it's safe and like regulate it, you'll always keep looping. And so that's why breaking the loop is so important, because once you see it, then you can change it. And then you have to repeat the patterns of change to show your nervous system, oh, this is a safe place for us. Right. And that's the biggest piece. I think people often do self-reflection and they go, oh, this is what's wrong with me. And they may shame themselves for that, even in therapy, right? Normal therapy, you're like ashamed. But instead, it's just seeing it and knowing there's nothing wrong with that. And then what am I going to change that belief into? And then continually moving in that direction until your nervous system sees that as familiar and safe. And then it's just integrated into your being, like how you are. And so I think even with my guide, I would say you continually, just like personal growth, you continually to do it. That's why I'll stop and say, okay, why am I doing this? Why am I not? And it'll take me back. Oh, remember what we found in Breaking Loop? Remember that limiting belief? Remember we were going to do this, but your nervous system is saying this isn't safe. So then that kind of like speaks back to you, and then you're like reminded. So you catch yourself. You have enough self-awareness to find yourself back in the loop, but then break it again. So it's not, unfortunately, for the quick fixers and the Amazon deliveries next day, it's not one of those. It's a continual, like, how do I move through this? And give yourself credit. Like for me, sometimes, and I'm sure you know this, Mike, you start doing something, you're like, I'm not doing it right. And you want to shame yourself. It's like, no, I caught myself. And now I can stop the pattern. And then, you know what I mean? And just realize that you're like training. You're really like retraining and reprogramming your mind and your nervous system to find another way as safe. So it's not like tomorrow. It's like, let it integrate.
That's right. That's why this is so powerful. It is like training a muscle. The more you do it, the better you get at it. But for those listening who, again, maybe are unfamiliar with these kinds of concepts, I want to help you understand this isn't just like positive affirmations. You don't just wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to be a multimillionaire business owner. That's not what this is about. It's about changing your perspective, that you stop thinking that you can't be a multi-million-dollar business owner if that's what you want to be. Because when you believe that you can't do something, you absolutely aren't going to do that thing. You will never attempt anything that could even get you close to that goal line. But when you get rid of those limiting beliefs, now you start to make decisions in your life, right, that could actually point you in that direction. It's not a genie that's necessarily going to grant that wish. You still have to put in the work, but it makes it possible. And I want to know real quick, if you could share just an example. You talked about how you have all these prompts. You don't have to necessarily share the specific prompt, but just at a high level, what kind of prompts are we talking about? What kind of conversations are you having with the AI?
So the original one that I started was to help a friend. This is even why the idea was given, about a relationship loop. Like why? Because people in relationships find this often. They're repeating the same patterns of the same people, right? They say, oh, I always meet this kind of a person. But really, I mean, you also attract what you are, but you have to realize why and a lot of that, which this opened it to the business part, right? But so the prompts would start, like, first, I would say how you want that person to speak to. So you have to be mindful of like, what feels comfortable for you, right? So I would say like, okay, be a therapist that's very, aware of this, and this, da, da, da. And then I would start by the prompts of like giving your background, the information that would be critical to just understanding your situation. I'm Heather Morgan. I was divorced. This is kind of how it made me feel. This is that. This is this. And this could be in business too. Here's where I am. I've, made 6 figures in a year, but I can't seem to get past that. These are the things, da, 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 these are and asking you to kind of give the kind of patterns and enough background for it to have. If you're coming in new, right, to your point, where you don't have a lot of data around who you are. And then as that goes through, I would be like, okay, tell me, based on my story, based on the information I provided, tell me some things that may be keeping me in these situations, because I'd have them describe the situation. What are some things that I may need to look at? And then it would kind of list, right? And then I would have some kind of ideas to prompt, like to give the guide user something like, depending on what comes back and how they feel. Because this is also, for some people, I think it's great because it's not as emotionally charged, but for you, it can be, right? So take a step back and like, okay, what's the next prompt that makes sense? Are you comfortable here? And then kind of dive deeper. Here's a couple options for you for your next prompting, if you're ready to dig deeper. Because most of these things, Mike, I'll be honest, whether it's relationships, business, whatever, they're all tying back to what the ego wants to protect, your identity and parts of you that sometimes feel uncomfortable to look at. And I'll just give one that I know a lot of people have, and I myself have continually worked through, like the money blockers, right? So in business, that's key for you to be able to train your nervous system to receive. and maybe not overgive. You're undervaluing your product or your time because you're like, you've tied that up to being good, or, however you've grown up with money. Like me, I didn't grow up with a family with a lot of wealth. So the identity around that and how it's managed, and there's a lot of that. And so anything that you're dealing with, whether it's relationships, business, all of that, it really comes back to yourself and the things that you've been through, and looking at them with a lens that, gives yourself grace and it understands, and you've got to be ready for that. So I kind of tried to make sure that the guide reader is at a place. But I'll tell you that I've had so many people say, like, I had a dream that night and it, like, I completely understood who I was. But it's not a quick fix, because that person would say specifically, they're down the same path. So it's just like we said about training. It's like, you can know the diet. I have a nurse friend. She knows her nutrition very well. She knows what she could be eating, but that doesn't mean that she's living that lifestyle, right? So it
Right.
really is helpful, but just like a therapist or anything else, you have to put in the work to want to grow your mind and reprogram those beliefs. And it's not going to be comfortable, because you have to look at yourself, like you said, a mirror, and go, all right, I'm going to have to change these behaviors repetitively and give myself grace for how they've been. Because sometimes you bring up shame. You're like, I could have had a whole different life if I didn't let this hold me back. It's like, but you didn't.
Yeah.
And maybe, and not only that, I think you're always right where you're supposed to be. And I truly believe that. And I think in speaking with AI, we're on the same page, at least my chat GPT is, that, you're not behind. Don't let feeling like you're behind stop you from moving forward. Like, the time will pass it either way. And I think sometimes when people start doing this work, they go, well, gosh, it's going to be all this time. I have to train. Like, it's not just a quick fix, but it's like, well, what else are you doing?
Yeah. Right.
This is your life. Like, do you want the life that you visualize for yourself? And to your point, yeah, maybe you're not a multimillionaire. Maybe you just want a quiet life and you write in the woods, because that sounds lovely to me too. But whichever it is, the path will reveal itself once you allow yourself to receive those things. And a lot of times when you don't work through these limiting beliefs, you can't be in full receiving mode because you don't feel safe to.
That's absolutely right. And fortunately, you've got techniques like anchoring that can help you remember these things, and frameworks that can help you work through this. And of course, the AI itself, which is really convenient because, number one, it's available 24/7. You don't have to wait for your next appointment with your coach or your consultant or your therapist. And it's not going to judge you. It's going to be there, helpful to you, happy to remind you, even if it's the 10th time. That's one of the things that I think we have to get over a little bit as humans. We're used to not wanting to bug other humans with repetition. AI doesn't have that problem. Folks, we're talking with Heather Morgan about using AI to help us see through our own biases and our own distortions. I've got several more questions you aren't going to want to miss. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. This episode of AI for Business Leaders, the AI Hat podcast, is brought to you by Magai. Tired of juggling multiple AI subscriptions and trying to figure out which tool to use and when? Magai simplifies AI for businesses by offering access to all the leading language models and image and video generators for one low price. With Magai, you can create custom instructions to personalize AI for every business need and use them across all LLMs, including ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and even DeepSeek. No more building custom GPTs or gems that are limited to just one platform. Magai also lets you create customized workspaces for your entire team, giving everyone in your organization access to the same AI assistants and tools and prompts. Ready to streamline your AI workflow and empower your team? Tap the link in the show notes to visit Magai today to learn more. And now, back to the rest of today's episode. So Heather, I'm wondering if you could give us another example maybe of some of these emotional loops that I think are really just commonly sabotaging solopreneurs without them even realizing it.
Yes. So one key one I found is that a lot of people first, they'll just be like, that's the way I am. And that's because you so strongly associate your identity with that, right? And you think that's just the way you are. AI kind of allows you to unpack that question a little bit deeper. Like, is that the way you are? Because to your point earlier, like sometimes we're just given this, it's an opinion, but it's not really who we are. But we identify so closely with it that the idea of that not being our truth anymore kind of scares us. Again, back to your nervous system coming in like, nope, that's who we are. But once you kind of are open to overriding it, and you realize that that doesn't have to be the way you are. And once you can get to that point and say, okay, I'm open to not always being this way, then you can start unpacking. Like I have someone, for example, that likes to buy a lot of things that they don't necessarily need, right?
Huh.
And
Oh, I don't know anybody like that.
yeah. And it's one of those things where when I talk to her about it, like she kind of like gives an excuse, but it's really like a comfort, right? We do a lot of things that we've just always done for a comfort. And I think sometimes when you stop to realize like why are you doing that thing? And you can even ask AI that simple question. Why do I buy things that I don't need all of the time? Right? Like, what about, because once you give it the background, it can unpack, like, why would you be doing that? And for me, like, this is a friend of mine that I do buy stuff too, but not like at that level. But one for me personally is sometimes it's like, I feel like I have to be productive all the time. Like, I feel like if I'm not doing anything, that I'm lazy. And that was a lot of my previous life that I left, is that I was always, I mean, I remember my ex-husband being like, you never sit down, because I tied my entire worth to being productive. So if I wasn't an output, then where was my value? And that was a lot of limiting beliefs of what I was taught, that if I was of any value, and especially like and not like to get super personal, but like as a woman without children, I was just married, I felt like if I don't output all this great work in the business world, then what is my value to the world? And that was like a really hard thing to unpack. And that's why I say this is one of those things where it's deep inner work, where you're really having to like sit with that. And those things can make you always chase this external validation and always feel like you have to do things to be accepted or to be needed or to be, and you realize that when you're doing those things for that purpose, it's not really fueling your soul. I guess you talked about books, and I really like The Big Leap, if I can mention it, Gay Hendricks. And he talks about the zone of genius, of where you leap into your zone of genius. And that's really like the unlock of where you want to be. But he also mentions limiting beliefs, because those keep you from being in your zone of genius. And when I read that book, this was around the time of all of this, it really unlocked a lot for me, that are just emotions that we always go through and that we've just held on so closely don't really allow us to just say, I just like this thing, so I'm going to do it because it's my passion. I think we're often taught like the safe path. And once we realize that the safe path isn't the only path, and I think most entrepreneurs get to that point, but then there's the fear that they don't have the safety net, which is why this work's important. But when we get to understanding that our emotions are really the foundation of the whole way we operate all the time, like our emotions that drive our thoughts, which drive our actions, and it's just an ongoing cycle. So that emotional regulation and being able to get to a place of calm and not always producing is probably the most beneficial for your growth and even business growth. I can't tell you how many doors have unlocked for me when I stopped trying to just be productive and started being like, what makes the most sense here? And what do I feel most called to put and create or do? and not just I have to, because there's a different energy behind those things. And I think that's kind of another piece of this work is an AI can pick up on how you're speaking, contradictions, things like that. And so it can look at those patterns and know the difference. Like is it just performative or is it how you actually feel? It can kind of mirror that back to you, which I think even for a therapist, I have one of my best friends is a trauma therapist, and I've shared her the guides, and she loves it. She's like, I think a lot of people, because not everyone's open to getting that deep about their emotions. And I think a lot of people don't honestly, Mike, tie their self-sabotage, their failures in business, their failures in relationships to themselves. They just blame things outwardly. And it's not that you need to blame yourself, but those things aren't happening just by coincidence. Those things are the result of the choices and patterns and behaviors that you output or you accept, all of those things, right? So there's just a lot there. Because we're going on about this, because I realize in this whole journey that there isn't just like these separate isolated pieces, like, oh, here's business, here's your personal life, it's really all you. It's all centered around you. And the way that your life looks from relationships to business is based on your ability to kind of self-regulate and self-lead and understand how best to make decisions based on the right moves for you instead of the same beliefs that you've always made decisions around.
That's so true. You have to have this holistic view of your mind, your emotional state, your experiences, your perceptions. It's the same reason, frankly, why I've kind of pivoted my own side hustle with the AI hat. I used to be focused specifically on marketers and agencies and just teaching them how to AI. And I started to realize, first, I really want to help solopreneurs and creators, but more importantly, it's got to be broader than just how to AI. It's more about the systems and the underlying processes in the business. Sometimes AI is the solution, sometimes it isn't. And you have to have that holistic view of the entire business as a solopreneur, all the things that you're doing, whether you've got processes and systems or not. That's where you're finding some breakdowns. And it's the same thing, I think, mentally as we're having this conversation here. And I love the first point you're talking about, the friend who was using retail therapy, essentially, right? As a self-cure. Some of you folks listening might have related to that. Some of you listening, probably all of you listening, will probably relate to buying tools that you aren't using and maybe don't even need. Yeah. Paying for courses and memberships that you haven't yet taken advantage of. I'm not trying to drive a wedge in here. I'm just trying to help you understand we're all doing these kinds of things. I have a stack of books near my desk that I have not yet read, and that won't stop me from buying another book this weekend if I happen into a bookstore. So we all do these things. And it's really cool, I think, that you can have a conversation with an AI and simply ask it, why am I doing this? Help me understand this particular pattern of behavior and help me understand what to do with it. And I know you've had some terrific conversations with some other business owners, some other clients. They've had breakthroughs. They finally understand why they're staying stuck in whatever it is that they're stuck in. What does that moment look like for them? How do you know that that pattern's actually broken?
So, and that's kind of the back to it. It can be like an aha moment, but you also have to be ready to take the actions, right? So to your example about buying the other book, you go, why am I doing this? Okay. Most of it, and I'll tell you right now, a lot of it is, especially buying courses, would be you feel productive. You feel like you're taking a step towards your personal growth or towards your business growth by buying this course, right? That purchase seems like a vote for the person you want to be. But the bigger piece is you're not taking the course, right?
Yeah.
So why am I not taking the course? And most of the time, you'll find that there's a fear of failure underlining that choice. Because if you just buy the course and you give them the excuse, well, I didn't have time to take it. I've been so busy. I was focusing on this, whatever you give, because we all know how that goes. You don't have to fail at it. But if you do the course and you don't know anything about it, let's say you want to know, but you don't. So you're going to be uncomfortable. You're going to be like, do I even know anything about that? What if you have a test? What if I don't pass? What if I don't get it? What if I'm the only one that doesn't understand? You start asking all these questions before you've even taken the course, before you've even opened it up. You're like, oh, what if it's, and then you start giving excuses. Your subconscious mind's like, yeah, you're right. Let's stay where we know. Let's stay safe. Don't do the course, because the course may be the next step into the big growth in your business or your personal life, your personal growth, all the things. And your subconscious is over here like, yeah, no. We want to be safe. So it doesn't know what it looks like when you get to that higher growth. So it's not necessarily your helper in growth. So it will give you like reasons like, okay, well, we don't have time. We don't want to do that. And it creates all this fear. So it's not until you identify that that's what you're doing when you don't do the course. You can ask it, why am I not taking this course? Because you're afraid to fail. Because you've decided that if you do and you grow, then you won't know. You might not know, how to handle that success. Fear of success is a real thing. That's almost more than fear of failure. You believe in yourself, you know you can do it, but the underlining in your subconscious that's running is that what would success look like? You've never been there. You don't know. What if I don't have time anymore? What if my friends don't like me because I'm more successful? What if my family's thinks I'm greedy? What if all of these different things, depending on your limiting beliefs or your identity, start coming up when you try to evolve? And so those are the kinds of things that this unpacks for you. And so those become the aha. So it's like you go, oh, okay, I'm not doing this because I'm afraid of being too successful, but I want to be successful. So now I'm going to tell my mind, it's okay. I'm taking this course because that's what I want to do. And so but you don't have time, you silence those excuses. You learn how to say, I hear you, but I'm not listening. You learn that your thoughts aren't necessarily you. They came to your mind, but they don't have to be accepted as truth. They're just a thought. Oh, I'm not accepting that thought, but thank you. And it's almost like a conversation internally with your subconscious mind to say, I hear you, but we're safe. So we're going to take that course and we're going to do it this time. Right. And so it's not preventing you from buying the thing. It's understanding why. What is that giving you? And are you what's the purpose of it? Right. And that's kind of how it works. Honestly, there's only a few reasons when you really tie it down, and there's fear and shame are probably one of the biggest or two of the biggest emotions that are tied to most of the reasons why we limit ourselves.
Yes, folks, hit rewind, go back, listen to this segment that Heather just gave you, because she just revealed two truths for you. First, she revealed why you're making some of the decisions that you're making, why you aren't doing some things that maybe you intended to do, like taking a course or reading a book or something like that. But she also just clued you in on your clients' mindsets as well. Why did your prospect buy your course and then not go through with it and end up churning a couple of months later when they finally realize they're still paying for that thing that they're not using? Why would they do that? This helps you understand that. A lot of marketers, we understand we want to talk to the pains of our customers in our marketing copy, which helps the customer understand, oh, okay, if I don't do this, it's going to hurt me even more than what I'm feeling right now, or the pain of purchasing it is not going to be as much as the pain of not doing something. It helps them understand that. But then we need to take it a step further when we're communicating with our new customers and making sure that they understand that it's okay. We're going to be there with you. We're going to help you through whatever it is that we're going to help you through, that sort of thing. So that's fantastic insight, I think, Heather, into the mindset of ourselves and our target audiences. I've got just one more question for you. I'm wondering, for a lot of the folks listening right now, they're maybe have done some of this mindset work. Like I said at the very outset, maybe they've tried journaling and so on. They haven't seen any real change. What do you think is the one thing that they could start to do today, that they could ask AI, maybe start to uncover some of these hidden patterns? And then the follow-up to that is, what questions should they ask themselves once they start to get that feedback from AI.
I love that. And I definitely agree. Journaling's great, but there's a little ego involved. Sometimes we don't always say our truths there. So for AI, I would really sit with it. And one thing that I love to do is, again, I would give it the background on you. And then I would tell it where you want to be. I think the biggest unlock that can help you kind of see the limiting beliefs in getting the things that you want for your life and kind of having it help you unpack first is like, where do you want to be? Usually if you're on a personal growth journey like this or starting a business, you know, you have a vision, right? So say where you are, tell ChatGPT, I'm going to tell you where I am. Here's what I want you to know. And this is where I want to be. This is the vision, right? Whatever that looks like for your business, for your life, the combination, all of it. Help me unpack why I'm not there yet. What things in my current life are preventing me from this situation, this business, you know, all of this, whatever it is, right? The vision that you wish for yourself in your business, in your life, etc. And what's the limitation? Like, what's stopping me from being there based on my background, based on the information? And it will just kind of give you some ideas, right? Like it'll unpack some of the things. And then based on what it comes back with, you'll know. Like there is an aha there that you'll probably go like, but you have to be open to receiving it or you're just going to discard it, right? But this is like AI. So it's better than a person because you don't really take it personally because it's literally AI. So they don't know you. They're not trying to hurt your feelings. They could care less. You know what I mean? So that's where it helps your ego not sting so much because no one else heard it. It's just you in the chat. So then you can like, okay, and start going, that resonates. And then ask it, let's unpack that a little bit more. Why would I be doing that? And that's kind of how you continue down the little path of just unpacking each thing, right? Like you talked about in business, holistically. You see there's a problem and it's like, well, why is that a problem? Do we have a process? Do we have a procedure? Who manages this? It's that same thought process of like finding the core like problem within like, what is the root cause of this problem? And that's the same mindset that you have to take into your own development. What is the root cause of this thing that's preventing me from the business, the life, etc. that I want for myself? And once you find the root cause, that's when you can start implementing solutions. And ChatGPT, AI, sorry, I just use chat, but there's so many great different ones, but AI can help you.
So powerful. And I think the two things that I typically include in a prompt will be incredibly powerful here. The first is I always give the AI permission to ask me questions. You know, I might give it all the context that I think it needs, but if I give it permission to ask me questions, it always comes back with 3 more things that it thinks would be really helpful for it to know before it starts diving into whatever. Another thing that I think is particularly powerful is to say, always challenge my assumptions.
I love that one too, Mike. And mine always, I forget about telling it to ask me questions because mine already is so programmed to know that it's going to ask me a certain thing. So that it's good to sometimes get back in that. But yes, and in my guide, it like does give you like dive deeper on this, dive deeper on that. But I absolutely, sometimes when I feel like it's being too kind, I'm like, give it to me straight. Just tell me. Because and so I agree. And you have to be there. You have to be ready for it. But I agree, like challenge me. But I also think the way that it speaks back to you, it's not like a person where you get defensive. I feel like the defensive wall as a human with AI it's so down. The way that it speaks to you back, because it's kind of mirroring that, it's not going to trigger, which often maybe a therapist or a partner or someone in your life that's trying to just give you advice, you get triggered immediately. So as soon as you're triggered like that, you're not open to change. It's like this conversation never happened. So this is where it's different because you're softening that space that normally you put a wall up when someone wants to critique you often. And that could even happen in business, right? Someone's like, Mike, this deck isn't any good. It's like, oh, Bill's already said, and then you're out the door with that. It's personal. Bill just doesn't like me. You start immediately giving the excuse. But when it comes to like AI, there's no reason. Like there's no emotional tie. There's no human like feeling of less than. It's a mirror of you reflecting. And I've said that. I say to mine personally, I say, be my soul aligned mirror. And that works for me. Everyone will be different, but I'll say, be my soul aligned mirror. And that way it's reflecting back that underlining soul that knows already what my purpose is here and kind of knows what my heart wants, but my ego has has taken over in some ways and makes it hard for me to see my true nature. And so that works for me. So I love that as well, but I have some suggested ones that are different as well. But saying your own soul is kind of nice, Mike.
Right?
Like, helps with the self-love. You're like, wow, I'm sure kind.
Yeah. Well, Heather, you've been absolutely amazing. This has been such, I think, a critical interview and conversation that I know everybody needs to listen to, but I know folks are going to have more questions. Their minds, their souls are buzzing right now. They've got questions for you. Where should they go to connect?
Yes. Jump over to my website, wanderingthewildmess.com. I have a podcast. It's really about self-growth and my personal journey, but I'm geek out about this stuff all the time. And you can look for my guides. I'm going to be starting a course about this coming up soon. So you can subscribe to my newsletter there, get more information. And send me a note there. There's a chat. You can send me an email. Happy to connect and answer questions.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Heather. Thank you, all of you, for listening. That's all the time we've got for today. Of course, I'll have all of Heather's links in the show notes below. But if you found yourself kind of nodding your head throughout and wondering how to have a truly insightful conversation with your AI, I want to encourage you to take a look at the AI Work Buddy prompt that you can grab for free. It'll help you create that completely personalized and tailored AI to help you with your work and your life. Grab it at theaihat.com/AI Work Buddy. Check it out, and I'll see you in our next episode. Welcome to the grid. That's a wrap on another episode of the AI Hat Podcast. I hope you gained some valuable insights and actionable strategies to boost your business with AI. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your network. And don't forget to visit theaihat.com for more resources and to connect with me. Until next time, keep innovating, and remember, the future of business is human and it's powered by AI.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Robbie Samuels hosts the On the Schmooze podcast. Robbie, tell listeners what to expect from the show.
Since 2015, I've interviewed entrepreneurs who overcame challenges to achieve success in their field or industry. Tune in to On the Schmooze to listen as I ask deep questions to elicit untold stories about leadership and networking.
And where can people subscribe?
Find the show at ontheschmooze.com or on marketingpodcast.net, or just search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard them. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.